Hey guys, so we're going to be covering Demon Slayer chapter 128 as well as episode 1 of, I think this is now season 4. And so you'll actually have to forgive me because we've done all of this in pre-production before we've actually filmed this and then the season is starting. So we're just going to jump right into the manga and then do a comparison maybe of the anime, just getting a brief overview. So chapter 128 starts off with a recap of what happened since the destruction of their base. Those in the Swordsmith village know that the demons would come again as soon as nightfall hits, and that they don't have any time to mourn the dead or reconstruct the village here, which would have been a terrible idea anyways because its location is compromised. But we get a quote from the narrator here. Even in the shadow of death, the world never stops turning, which is so true. It's a simple fact of life, no matter what you're dealing with in life, or no matter how big or small, it's applicable. All right, so we then transition over to Goto, a Kakushi, and please excuse me because I'm going to butcher so many Japanese words here. But Goto is also the first to notice in Tanjiro's recovery that he's catching up to the Hashiras. And Goto also points out to Tanjiro and the reader that they have several empty villages prepared so that they can move quickly if anything happens. We also get an update on Nezuko, saying that she's out fully walking around the sun now and that Lady Tamayo is studying her changes and that they're unsure if she's evolving into a new type of demon or reverting into a human. We then also get a hilarious panel of Zenitsu reacting to how beautiful Nezuko is in the sun, but then also finding out for the past 2 days, Inosuke has been training Nezuko to say his name. Love this scene. The art here was fantastic. It was very hilarious. You got to see it in the manga as well. So we then move on to the Ubuyashiki. I'm going to ruin it, but it's okay, guys. We're just going to power on through this. Where the Hashira are holding an emergency meeting, and the Wind Hashira, Sanime Shinazugawa, is jealous that everyone seems to be running into the upper rank demons except for him, and the Insect Hashira, Shinobu Kocho, has noticed that the Love Hashira, Mitsuru Kanroji, and Mist Hashira, Muchiro Tokito, have healed much faster this time than their previous battles. Can we theorize that obtaining the Demon Slayer mark has increased their healing ability? Food for thought. What do you guys think in the comments? So anyways, meanwhile, the master's sickness has worsened and he's no longer able to appear before them, and it's represented by Ubuya Shiki. She tells the Ashira that because of Nezuko's ability to withstand the sun, he has no doubts that Muzan Kubusuchi will come for her, and that a full-scale war in the future that there's going to be a full-scale war in their future. Additionally, because Kanroji and Tokito have manifested their marks, she'd like them to tell the others about the conditions that made the marks appear. The Hashira seem to have no idea about these marks, but it's revealed that the swordsmen generations before them nearly defeated Muzan, also had these marks and used the first breathing. They specifically say first breathing in the manga. So I'm interested to see if they actually say that it's sun breathing in the anime. We'll find out. It's also revealed that the information was hidden previously because of how many tormented themselves to try to make the marks appear. We then find out that the details of the marks were unclear, perhaps because it was unimportant or simply lost in time due to numerous times of the Demon Slayer Corps faced near total destruction. They also have this legend that when the marked one arrives, others will have their own awakening, and all we get from the Love Hashira is that she remembers her heart pounding and her ears ringing, and then we have the Wind Hashira who remembers things differently. Excuse me, it's the Mist Hashira who remembers things differently, not the Wind Hashira. Okay, and then we can move on to chapter 129 called To Become a Marked One, and I'm pretty sure that this is also going to fit into episode 1 of the new season. Alrighty, moving on to the next chapter. There's absolutely no delay. The Mist Hashira explains that when he was poisoned and needed to use his breathing techniques to reduce the spread of the poison, he mentions that the boy in the Swordsmith village was almost killed, and he was so angry that he couldn't control his emotions. He says his body felt hot in the moment, and his heart rate was over 200, and his body temperature was over 39 degrees Celsius. Sorry, when I was thinking that it was over 200, I was like, 200 what? Definitely meant beef for a minute, but anyways. So his heart rate was over 39 degrees Celsius, or his temperature was over 39 degrees Celsius, which is equivalent to over 102 degrees Fahrenheit. He says it's like being put through a sieve, which for those that don't know, it's the utensil with the whirring that allows you to sift smaller particles. Like, for instance, if you're trying to sieve flour or sugar, you'd to get to the sand or what is it? You'd sieve through sand to get to a seashell. That's probably the best example. But anyways, the bottom line here is that he states it's a survival. It is survival that separates those who manifest the mark from those who don't. It is the Wind Hashira that belittles the process and thinks it's simple, which Gyu says that he envies the Wind Hashira's mind for thinking that it's simple. The Stone Hashira says he will achieve the mark, and that the Insect Hashira says it's urgent that they all attain it. But there's an interesting panel after this, because the master's representative then tells the Hashira that those that do manifest the mark will all... Yep, they leave us on a cliffhanger here. We don't know. It's easy to infer that she'll say they'll all die, but maybe she was going to say that they'll die early. Who knows? Interestingly enough here, it looks like the Snake Hashira's snake actually talks and says the 6 of the Hashiras should talk. Gyu then decides to excuse himself from the meeting, saying that he's different from them and that he will not be involved. The Wind Hashira takes this as an insult, and you see the veins throughout his face, and he's ready to fight, and all the Stone Hashira does is clap his hands and tell them to sit, and that he has a proposal. So if you didn't know already, you can start to infer that this guy is the number 1. We then transition to Tanjiro reuniting with Hagan Nizuka in the infirmary, who brings him a new katana with Rengoku's hilt. Tanjiro notices that the black is deeper on the sword and that it only has the kanji for slay on it. The interesting thing about this, and I'm not sure if this is foreshadowing, but they say that the sword was made for slaying all demons, and that it differs from the demon slayer swords with the words Akimasato. My Japanese pronunciation is terrible. We then realize that Genya is next to him and has not been able to sleep through the noise, and at that very moment, Inosuke breaks through the window for no reason, saying, "Stronger! Stronger!" and lets the group know he lets the group know how Strong Guy said something about group training. He's definitely referring to the Stone Hashira. And with that, we move on to chapter 130, where the special training called the Hashira training begins, and we learn that even though it's called Hashira training, everyone is doing it. Immediately we learn that usually the Hashira generally don't train anyone except for their Sugoku proteges, and that they do recon and security over large areas and improve their skills. But after Nezuko was able to conquer the sun, the demon appearances stopped altogether. We then get this hilarious panel of Zenitsu absolutely hating the training, and Tanjiro being like, "When you spar again, others you get stronger yourself." And Zenitsu bites his head. It's like biting his forehead. It's fantastic. Tanjiro then lets Zenitsu know that he was able to imitate his thunder breathing to catch up to the demon to cut off his head. Tanjiro then gets a letter, and we transition to Tengen Uzai training the other demon slayers who aren't standing any chance at all of being remotely successful in their training. They stage their training to begin with fitness with Uzui, flexibility with the Love Hashira, swordsmanship with the Serpent Hashira, infinite strikes with the Wind Hashira, and strength training with the Stone Hashira. Those that have the mark train to maintain their mark condition. All have begun this except for Gyu Tomoyoka, the Water Hashira. We then transition to the Water Hashira sitting in silence. He's interrupted by Tanjiro saying hello, and that he's coming in, and that Tanjiro is like, clearly he's not leaving. Sorry, it's not Tanjiro, it's Gyu. It's like, clearly he's not leaving. I must have misheard. Tanjiro lets him know that they're all training, which he already was well aware of, and that in 7 days he'll return back to active duty. Tanjiro asks him if he'd train with him when he's able to come back to duty. Gyu says no, and Tanjiro smells Gyu's anger and asks why he's angry at him. And Gyu says it's because Tanjiro was supposed to become the Water Hashira, and that he hasn't fully mastered water breathing. Tanjiro explains that Urodaki explains to him that because the water breathing is close to the basics, it's easy to branch off and become something else. Gyu is upset because there's currently no Water Hashira and that there needs to be one, which surprises Tanjiro because to this point we all believe that Gyu was the Water Hashira. We then have a brief transition to the Master, where we find out what was said in that letter to Tanjiro, which was that the Master asks him to be persistent when talking to Gyu because he always turns his back and goes it alone, so he asks him to help him face forward. Tanjiro literally took this at face value and talked to Gyu all the time. After 4 days, Gyu gave in, and we learned that the truth is that he didn't pass the final selection. From here, we learn a bit more about Sabito, the ghost of which helped Tanjiro pass the final selection exams. And at 13, both Gyu and Sabito took the final selection exams together. During their final selection, we learned that Sabito saved Gyu and that he was the only one that was killed during their final selection exam. We learned that Sabito was strong enough to kill almost all of the demons single-handedly, saving everyone. The first demon that attacked Gyu left him injured, and in a daze, Sabito saved him and he entrusted him to another as Sabito went to save the others. Next thing he remembers is that the final selection was over and that he somehow survived for 7 days. So here's when we learn of Gyu's feelings of inadequacy. That because he truly didn't pass the exam, he can't stand shoulder to shoulder with Hashira. And immediately after this, Tanjiro cries, insert the Tobey Maguire meme, Gyu begins to walk away, telling him that the Hashira should train him. I want to note that although Gyu may feel this way, and this may be an expansion of his background, the reader is learning it makes sense now why he might be angry with Tanjiro, as he is the one that also studied under Uraraki, and in his eyes, he passed the final selection, or passed the final selection exam honorably, but isn't exactly on the path to becoming the Water Hashira. And that's where we wrap up this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for the next video.